This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by JB Davis at Performance Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. For integrity, service, and unbeatable deals, ask for JB in Centerville and tell them the Recovery Couch sent you. Sub Holmes. Welcome back to the Recovery Couch. I'm your host, Brandon Couch, and today we're diving into episode 6 of our PTSD Awareness Month series, PTSD Unpacked. This episode is about something that doesn't get talked about enough, but affects so many people. Complex PTSD, or C-PTSD. The kind of trauma that doesn't just come from one moment, but from years of moments that never felt safe. So let's start with this question. What happens when trauma doesn't stop? What happens when a threat isn't a single event, but a repeated experience of fear, abandonment, abuse, neglect, or emotional instability? Well, that's what complex PTSD is. C-PTSD often develops in people who experience trauma over an extended period, especially in environments where escape wasn't possible. We're talking about childhood abuse or neglect. We're talking about domestic violence or human trafficking. We're talking about long-term emotional manipulation or long-term religious, spiritual, or institutional abuse. And the symptoms, they can go far beyond the traditional PTSD checklist. People with C-PTSD often experience a distorted sense of self, feeling broken, unworthy, or like everything is their fault. People with C-PTSD often experience difficulty with emotional regulation, either go numb or they go overwhelm mode. People with C-PTSD often experience chronic trust issues, even with safe people. They often experience deep fear of abandonment, even when there's no threat, or they experience relationship struggles, including fear of closeness and panic when boundaries are set. Or someone with C-PTSD might feel persistent shame, like they're too damaged to ever be healed. Ask yourselves, does this sound familiar? And for those of you who maybe it does sound familiar and there might be that shame, let me tell you right now, these things are familiar to me. If PTSD is a wound that came from a blow, then C-PTSD is a wound that came from living in a battlefield, bro. Not for a day, but for years. Which on the flip side, in a good light, that makes you a warrior. But back to the trauma, that kind of trauma didn't just happen to you. It shaped you. We learned to keep quiet. We learned to stay small. We learned to read every room. We learned to be hyper vigilant. We learned to apologize for everything. We learned to disappear emotionally just to survive. And now we're trying to live in freedom, but our nervous system has gotten so far out of whack that it never received the memo. But here's what we need to know and realize and understand, that we're not too far gone. We're not too broken. Yes, we were shaped by our traumas, but we can be reshaped by our healing. And healing from C-PTSD, it takes time. It takes safety. It takes the slow work of relearning trust, both in others and in ourselves. But it's possible, because the same brain that adapted to survival mode can learn how to adapt to rest and peace. The same heart that built walls to stay safe can learn to open up again. And the same spirit that once believed that we'll never be okay can begin to believe, I already am okay. Psalm chapter 40 verse 2 tells us, He lifted me out of the pit of despair, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on solid ground and gave me a firm place to stand. If you're like me, you may have lived in the pit for a long time, but that's not where our story ends. I want to thank you for being here for episode 6 of PTSD Unpacked. In our next episode, we're going to tackle something we all carry, whether we talk about it or not: shame. We'll look at why shame and PTSD are so tightly linked and how we break free from it. Until then, remember, the trauma may have been complex, but so is your resilience. You're a fighter, you're a warrior, you're resilient. And the healing you're stepping into, it's real, bro. Support for this episode comes from Greg Swartz at Remax Victory and Affiliates. Whether you're buying or selling your home, Greg brings heart, hustle, and honesty to every deal. Call Greg at 937-477-8975 today.